Hello and welcome to Written Words. I'm Helen, and in today's video we're going to look at similes and metaphors. So we're going to explore what similes and metaphors are and the difference between them. We're going to look at some examples of similes and metaphors in literature, and we're going to look at how similes and metaphors are like herbs and spices in writing. When we cook, adding herbs and spices makes the food more interesting and nicer to eat. There are lots of herbs and spices that we can add to writing too, to make it more interesting and nicer to read. And similes and metaphors are just two of these. So what are they? Let's look at similes first of all. A simile is when something is compared to something else, usually using the words like or as. And it tells the reader that something is like something else. For example, in the well-known story of Snow White by the Brothers Grimm, when Snow White is born, we're told the baby's skin was as white as snow, her cheeks as red as blood, and her hair as black as the ebony. So there are three comparisons there. Her skin is not actually snow, it's just the same colour. It's as white as snow. Her cheeks are not covered in blood, they're as red as blood. And her hair is as black as ebony. So we have three similes in that one sentence. In the popular Christmas poem A Visit from St. Nicholas, we're told that St. Nicholas had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. So we have a simile there, like a bowl full of jelly. So we can imagine his belly shaking like jelly when he laughs. Metaphors are words or phrases to describe something as if it is that thing, not just like it, but it is that thing. It tells the reader that something is something else in a figurative sense. So again, it's a comparison, but it's a much stronger comparison. William Shakespeare, in his play As You Like It, says, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players." So he's comparing the world to a stage. It isn't a stage in a theatre in the conventional sense, it's just a figurative comparison. It's making you look at the world in a different way. And the men and women merely players. So he's saying we're all actors on the stage, which we're not really in a literal sense. It's just a comparison to make us see things differently. Emily Dickinson's poem Hope is the Thing with Feathers is a metaphor. Hope is an abstract noun. It's a thing that you can't see or touch. It's very real, but it's abstract. It's not physical. Yet feathers are something very physical that you can touch and feel. They're very soft and very light. So hope isn't actually something with feathers. But Emily Dickinson wants us to see it in a different light, as if it was something with feathers that could fly, that was light. And there are many common phrases that we use a lot and probably don't realise that they're actually metaphors as well. For example, to wear your heart on your sleeve. No one would ever actually take their heart out and put it on their sleeve. What they mean is, if you wear your heart on your sleeve, you're showing your feelings openly. A blanket of snow. So if you wake up in the morning and open the curtains and the ground is covered in snow, it looks like somebody's put a blanket out there that's pure white. It's not a real blanket. If you put that kind of blanket on your bed, it would not keep you warm. It's not literally a blanket, it's just another way of looking at something. Life is a roller coaster. Life is not literally a roller coaster, otherwise we would feel quite sick most of the time. But when we say life is a roller coaster, we mean that there are ups and downs in life. There are times when we feel quite shaken about by the highs and lows of the emotion that just comes with life. The Bible is full of metaphors. For example, I am the vine and you are the branches. This is not meant in a literal sense. When Jesus said he was the vine, he didn't mean he had grapes on him. He didn't mean that we're actually branches made of wood. He's using it in a figurative sense to explain something deeper. Probably the most well-known of all the Psalms, the Lord is my shepherd. The shepherd imagery is used a lot in the Bible, but God doesn't have a literal flock of sheep. He doesn't wander the hills with his crook looking after his literal sheep. It's again used figuratively to explain a much deeper meaning. An extended metaphor is a metaphor that goes on for a long time. It can continue for a whole passage, whole paragraph, or even for an entire work. One example of this is Robert Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken. It talks about two paths through a wood, and the whole poem talks only about these paths in the woods and which one he decides to take and what they look like. But really what he's talking about is not paths in woods, but the choices that we make in life. So he's using this description of the paths figuratively to explain something deeper. Then there are mixed metaphors, and mixed metaphors are when we use one part of one metaphor and another part of another metaphor and put them together, either accidentally or deliberately to produce a nonsensical effect or a comical effect. For example, he could talk and talk until the cows turned blue. So that's mixing two metaphors to do something until you're blue in the face. I've said it time and time again until I'm blue in the face, meaning you're sick and tired of having to say the same thing. And another metaphor, to talk until the cows come home. If somebody is a real chatterbox and they talk a lot, you can say, he will talk until the cows come home, meaning he'll talk until the sun goes down. He'll talk all day. So those two metaphors have been mixed in this example. He spilled a whole can of worms is mixing two different sayings. To spill the beans means to give away some information, to tell somebody something, perhaps something that you probably shouldn't have told them. And to open a can of worms means to introduce a subject that's going to cause a lot of controversy. So he spilled a whole can of worms is mixing those two sayings. So metaphors and similes are very useful in writing. They're very useful because they make the writing more interesting. They help to bring it to life. However, just as with cooking, you need to use just the right amount of herbs and spices. Too much or too little seasoning can make the food inedible or the writing unreadable. So now let's have a look at a poem which is also a very beautiful metaphor. He Wishes for the Cloths of Heaven by W B Yeats. Had I the heavens' embroidered cloths, enwrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and the half-light, I would spread the cloths under your feet. But I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams. So there are no similes in this poem. There is no like or as. The poet has just dived straight into a metaphor, and it's an extended metaphor because it continues for the whole of the poem. So what is the metaphor? He's talking about the heavens, and he's talking about the heavens as if they were embroidered cloths. And these cloths have threads of gold and silver in them as well. They're enwrought with golden and silver light. So the cloths themselves are blue and dim and dark. They're the colours of night and light and half-light. So all the colours that the heavens can be. If we look at the sky at different times of day and night, it's a different colour. He's imagining that this is a cloth of all those colours enhanced with the golden and silver light that is in there from the sun, from the moon, from the stars. So if he had those cloths, he would spread them under your feet. So he's obviously talking to somebody who is very dear to him, somebody who is very precious to him, somebody who deserves to have this precious cloth spread under their feet. But because he's poor, he can't afford such expensive cloth, and instead he uses only his dreams. So he makes a cloth of his dreams, which is another metaphor. So we have cloth, which is the heavens, and now we have cloth, which is made of dreams. And he says, tread softly, because you tread on my dreams. So not only is this cloth very precious, but he's also made himself very vulnerable by spreading his dreams beneath this person and putting his dreams where they can be trodden on. So the metaphor in this poem is comparing heaven to a cloth, comparing the light in the sky to the threads of gold and silver in the cloth, and comparing dreams to a cloth. The poet's not talking about literal cloth. He's using the metaphor to explain something more deeply. He's using the metaphor to say to whoever this person is that he cares about them so much, he would give them his most precious possession. So for our language focus, let's have a very brief look at some other herbs and spices that you can use in writing. There are lots of them. There are lots of devices you can use to make your writing more interesting. So these are just a few of many. Onomatopoeia is a word which imitates the sound it's associated with. For example, sizzle or buzz or cuckoo. In fact, a lot of bird names are onomatopoeic. They reflect the sound that those birds make. Alliteration is the repetition of the same sounds at the beginning of words. For example, a busy bumblebee buzzed from flower to flower. Personification is when something non-human is given human characteristics. For example, when we say, the sun smiled down on us. An oxymoron is when apparently contradictory terms appear together. For example, organized chaos or a deafening silence. And antithesis is also to do with opposites. Antithesis is when we put together two contrasting ideas in a sentence. For example, the opening line of Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And now for our writing prompt. Take your imagination for a walk at night time in the woods. Describe what you can see, hear, smell, etc. Is it a nice place to be? Is it a frightening place to be? Use similes and metaphors and any other techniques that you feel will bring your writing to life. And when you've done that, if you would like to share what you've written, feel free to post it in the comments below. As usual, there is a worksheet to accompany this and all the other lessons, and the worksheets can be downloaded in packs of 10 lessons from our website at writtenwords.uk. And also on the website you will find a link to my book, A Month of Writing Ideas, if you fancy the idea of a month-long writing challenge. Thank you very much for joining me in this lesson. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and in the meantime, happy writing.